Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker.
Well, hello and welcome back. It is a new week. It is the start of a new project. And one of the really, I would say, welcome but also unexpected benefits of doing these videos as I've done over the last few years is that sometimes folks will send me stuff. And it's always a wonderful surprise. There's nothing like getting something in the mail that you'd never ask for, that you never saw coming. And sometimes people will, they'll email me or say, I've got some kits that I'm never going to build. I've got something that I would, love to see somebody do something with. Would you like this? And of course, I'm not going to turn something down unless it's a topic I just have zero interest in. I'm always humbled and feel really blessed, but when I do receive something like this, because I'm just a goon who does stuff on YouTube. I whatever level of skill I have is through sheer repetition. It is nothing that I purport to be any sort of expert in. So it's always a very nice gesture and always a welcome thing when I get something in the mail. I've got a gentleman who regularly will say, hey, I was at a yard sale and I saw this kit and I picked it up and I'm going to send it to you, because he knows the types of models that I like and knows that it's not something I might necessarily go out and look for by myself, but if he finds something in a good deal, he says, oh yeah, I'll put that in a loose stash and send it off to him. And I always love that kind of stuff. But today's model, it satisfies, or probably this couple of weeks model, satisfies some very hard to put into words itches that I have right now. It is mid-December and it's still 60 degrees outside. And I grew up north. I like the snow. I never thought I would say I miss the snow, but I do. I'm used to, wearing a snowsuit from like September 15th to, March 15th. I'm used to that. And when I move south, it's like, hey, great, I don't have to plow snow. But, you also have to mow your yard into January, which is kind of strange. So there are trade-offs. But I miss the snow, and particularly as we get closer to the holidays, I miss it. So this kit has snow in it. That's an important thing. It has snow in it. It requires no decals or lighting. That's an important thing. It's a resin kit. It's a garage kit. It is not, there aspects of it are 3D printed, but it's not a 3D printed kit. It is, like I say, it's a resin kit. It's a figure. It's a figure and it's a monster or beast. It's a little of everything. And let's just show it to you. Let's just get down. No more ballyhooing and hem-hawing. Let's get down to the model at hand. Okay, as you might be able to tell from this pile of parts, this is the Stannarts company, from a company called Stannarts. This is the Search for Luke. This is Han Solo on a tauntaun. Han on a tauntaun. Han on a tauntaun 2 bits. Looking something like this. Now in fact, there are at least two different versions of this. One is the one that I have, which has the aforementioned tauntaun with a little bit of a stride. See, I'll kind of hold the legs up there so you can tell. You can see one leg is pointing forward, one leg is pointing back, and it goes on this wider base. And I think this might be the early version. What's available now on his Facebook page is one that is much more stayed, much more one pose where both feet are next to each other and it's standing more at attention. And my good friend Rob Schmidt, my master, my guru, my Yoda of the airbrush, what Yoda is to the lightsaber, Rob Schmidt is to the airbrush. And he has the second. He has the version that is more standing straight up and down. So it will be interesting to see how we can complete these things and what they'll look like if they ever get next to each other. I had gotten this, again, like I said, I was sent this kit by a very, very kind and generous viewer of my channel who said, basically, I'm never going to have time to build this. I want to see somebody do it that can do it justice, and I'm hoping that I am that person. Again, it's not going to, no decals, no lighting, but it's going to be a fun build because it's all going to, and very little, oddly enough, very little airbrushing, I'm thinking, outside of the base coating, because it's going to be all about simulating fabric and fur and snow, which is basically and skin on Han's face, which is excellently sculpted, by the way. But beyond getting the base coat on with a primer, and even that might be probably a rattle can, there's not going to be a lot of a cause for airbrush. I will be able to use some snow effects to go on top of this base, and that was the other thing. I can tell you the second version of this has a base about half this size. But, and this is solid. This is one big hunk and chunk of resin. So, that is, that's its own deadly weapon. Let's see, where are we? Oh, I was mentioning there are 3D printed pieces, some wonderfully detailed pieces, such as Han's pistol in the holster. And really fun bit, which is clear resin printed goggles that will go up on his hat, right down to the separately printed uppers or lowers and upper teeth for the Han-taun. But this is going to be a fun build because obviously there's some cleanup that needs to be done. There's some sculpting that needs to be done. The seams are there. I mean, there's no way you get around it. But since this is an organic beast, you fill your seams in, and then you just add some little hair detail or fur detail to go around. Now, the differences between this one and the second version, I'm not going to harp on them too much because I don't have the second version. I'm not going to be building the second version. However, I've noticed that in the second version, the reins, I believe, are separate. These are molded in, so that I won't be doing anything so far as trying to put the reins in Han's hand, since the reins are meant to be laying over top of the saddle, like that. But I will be trying to put the binoculars in Han's hands. They will be coming up something like this, and again, these pins don't quite line up, only because that pin looks like it's been filled in. As I said, this is I think this might be the first version of this kit. It has gone through revisions, but when the hands go something like that, I think we can fit the binoculars in between them, and that would make sense. If he's got both hands on his binoculars, then the reins would be sitting on the saddle in front of him. It's going to be fun in the realm of detailing this and fitting all the details to it. But today, since it's kind of nice out, it was rainy and ugly all weekend. Not to take anything away from the poor souls in Kentucky who had all of the tornadoes this last weekend. I look out my window and I feel I should just shut up and go back in, because at least my house is still standing. But I'm going to, because it's a nice enough day out, I'm going to take these parts outside and do things like grind off the poor stubs. This feels like it's hollow cast. It doesn't feel like there's like it's solid. So I'm wondering how much work I'm going to need to do. Now these legs are solid, but I'm wondering how much work I'm going to need to do as far as putting pins in here. I think that simply putting enough epoxy over the surface here and then mashing that together. I don't think I'm going to need to epoxy that and pin it. I don't know what the pins would buy me that the epoxy wouldn't. There's not, I mean, as far as attachment points, it's not going to add that much. So what I need to do today is to clean up these parts, clean up the pour stubs, and like that on the elbow there, and here on the ears there's a pour stub, things like that. Get these parts ready so that I can start some construction. Okay, I decided to add the tail first rather than the legs because I thought that that would give me more leverage when it came to attaching the other parts to it. I'm running into an interesting issue though, and that is I can't use epoxy quite the way I wanted to. When I first took the tail piece off and I covered the one side with the epoxy and put it up against the other side, I realized I wasn't making contact like I'd hoped. It was barely making contact around the edges. So what's happening is in these areas in particular, there are a lot of voids in there. So what I'm going to need to do is fill this in with something solid and then push this into it. So I fell back to using this 2-part epoxy putty. It sets up really quickly, so I have to put it in, kind of thin, and then just jam it in there and hold it. I can still use the epoxy sculpt to clean up the edges, which I had always intended on doing, but I just can't. I was hoping to be able to just layer a bit of epoxy in there, but I don't know what parts are going to hit, where it's actually going to make contact in there. So the safer alternative is just to line this with a thin layer of this water weld epoxy putty and jam the leg on there and see where it's going to fit. I could do that maybe with epoxy sculpt, push it in there, and then that would tell me where the contact points are. But epoxy sculpt really takes overnight to set up properly, whereas this will set up in 5 or 10 minutes. This will be rock solid. And that's really what I'm looking for. This tail is already good and secure. I also used it to fill in the gap here around Han's waist, because that was noticeably gappy. I don't want to call him gappy waisted, but he was gappy waisted. So that's and the thing about this plumber's epoxy is it's still soft enough that you could sculpt it after a while, and then when it gets completely dry you can just go in and sand it or file it like anything else. It's not an epoxy that I like to use a lot because it's messier, plus it can set up too quickly. But in an instance like this, I noticed, particularly on this arm, that I needed to go ahead and build that shoulder out so that it would lay flat, and then I can fill this in a little bit more and smash it in there, and when it comes out the sides you just carve it off with a knife. But a little bit messier, a little bit different than I was planning on doing, but these are the kinds of things that you learn when you're working on the fly. Okay, I think this is a good place to leave it for the end of day one. I've got the legs in, all 4 of them. I found that the best alternative was to use the steel stick after all. It only took me 3 limbs to figure that out. A steel stick sets up a lot quicker than the water weld does, and it's a lot less gooey to work with. So that was the solution for that. Now I still have all of the work to do tomorrow on the back legs that I did on the front, which is to take epoxy sculpt and go over all the seam work and blend it all back in and put some hair over the bald spots and that kind of stuff. And I can see I still have to clean up some seam work on the feet, things like that. Wasn't going to get too involved with the feet until I had it at least positioned on the base so that I could see how much of the feet were going to show. I can see why this was redesigned. not only is this a big chunk of resin, but it does not sit very well in that chunk of resin. It does balance, it will sit, but it needs a heck of a lot of underfilling, what I'm calling underfilling, to make it secure. You can see it wants to tip forward, but it needs a lot of support. It's like this is posed almost like a ballerina in mid-run, where only the pads of the feet are hitting the base. That may work in some instances. It's not the best for long-term display of a model. You really want that base to be secure. So I could see pretty much filling, I'll go ahead and balance you over there, filling in this entire foot right here, just filling that in on both of these, and making new impressions with epoxy sculpt. I mean, fill it in with epoxy sculpt and make new impressions about where the feet actually are landing, and use that as my new base. Morning, welcome back. It's Tuesday, and it's the second day on the Han-taun and Han, and what I'm calling the Han-taun, build. And we got a lot done yesterday, but I have to tell you, in the manner that things got done yesterday, it was kind of, I won't say slapdash because that's disrespectful, but I was kind of putting enough putty on things to get it in place, get it dried, get it sealed in, but I didn't have time to finesse a lot of the joints. I basically had to get the two parts joined together, and I did some sculpting while the epoxy putty was setting up, but and most notably, like, I buffed up the shoulders here on the front. But today's work, a lot of it is going to be cleaning up these joints and then covering them with some new epoxy sculpts to sculpt in some more hair around those obvious joints. And that's on this half. And on the other half, I'm going to be attaching the ears and horns and stuff to the head, so that'll be fun and distinctive and good looking. I took out the rocking that was happening in the base. The base is now solid and steady. I have found that the best way to attach, or the best way to display the Han-taun on the base, is to basically ignore the little foot or toenail imprints that are sculpted into it and kind of reposition it a little. So I'm going back with my theory about taking some epoxy sculpt and filling in the depressions that are already there, and basically making a new set of footprints so that I can more substantially attach him so that he's not rocking back and forth. And let's see, what else? Oh, I've been working a little bit on Han this morning, cleaning up that joint here, and I want to work to get the binoculars to fit in his hand. It's a little bit, I need to sand away a little bit of the printed part here so that it fits better into his hand. I need to put something, it looks like I might need to put something in his other hand, because the way they go together, they don't go together in such a way that you could say, oh, well, he's got two hands on the binoculars. One of them actually wants to go down a little bit, so I might have to find something else to put in that hand. I can't use the reins as such, because the reins are molded into the back here around the horn of the saddle. So I can't, without cleaning them off of here, which I don't really want to do, I can't do scratch build any reins to put in there. And that of course made me go off on one of my tangents when I'm alone model building, and I'm thinking into my head, you have to have multifaceted people around you when you're staging a galactic rebellion, because I don't know how long the rebels were on Hoth before they discovered the Han-taun. I don't believe they brought the Han-taun with them. I believe that they discovered them as an indigenous species and said, hey, this is something we could use. But I'm wondering how they came about finding the guy in the rebellion that knew how to make saddles and reins. It's like, Jack Porco, what's your specialty? Well, I can bullseye a womp rat and for my T16, or I can fix a hyperdrive motivator, or I can set up a power. Do we have anybody here that knows how to make a saddle? What's a saddle? So you wonder, who was the guy, who was the rebel that they plucked out of obscurity to make the saddles for the tauntauns? Who was the one that discovered, hey, we found some animals, maybe we could try to ride them while we're getting our snow speeders acclimated to the cold. Hey, here's this two-legged beast. I bet you we could ride that thing. And I suppose we're lucky they found these guys before they found the wampas. Imagine trying to put a saddle on that. But like I said, that's where my brain goes while I'm, absent-mindedly filling in and making little hairs and filling in things with putty. So perhaps it's best I keep myself busy and not think of such things. Let's get back on to today's work, shall we? I was just doing a little bit of cleanup because when you are sanding resin like this, you can raise a cloud of dust in a heartbeat. So it's easier to keep it cleaned as you're going rather than to let it get ahead of you and then have to dig out from it. Again, getting back to my snow analogy from yesterday. I think I've identified this as this type of resin is alumilite. This is a very soft. The white resin is a very soft stuff. I mean, it sands very easily. It takes to the Dremel tools very easily. What I've just been doing in the last little bit is getting the ears in, and of course this is all about symmetry, making sure that they look right and they're standing up at the right angle. The horns, the tusks, the side horns if you want to call them, put one in and then let the epoxy cure on that, and that'll kind of set the angle for the other one. They are not symmetrical. I mean, obviously they are symmetrical side to side, but I mean that they are not the same shape, so vaguely they come out at the same angles, and one is larger than the other. And my chief goal was to make sure that it stayed away from his mouth, so much so that I could still get in around it to paint and all of that, and that it looks good when it is in place on the top of the neck. So I've been working with that, and as the epoxy putty has been curing, as it's been setting up, I've been doing little tweaks to the joint there. Again, I don't want to make this so tight that I can't get in behind it with a paintbrush when the time comes. So we're settling that in. I drilled out, or not drilled, but I took the Dremel and I cleaned out more of his upper palate there so that I can get this row of teeth in. I have to decide yet how wide I want his mouth to be open. Probably not very, but I want to give the impression there's still something going on in there, so I don't know how prominent the teeth are going to be until I get the jaw in place. Now I know the lower teeth are going to go in there because they'll fit in there very easily. So I can put those in the lower jaw and they'll be nice and visible. It's the upper teeth that I'm really more concerned about. So I'm needing to sand off the back of this jaw here. I've kind of marked it out in pencil, the area that I want to lose, so that I can put it in place and have it be open to the extent that I want it to be open. So that's the next thing. And of course, any overachieving that I do, I can always fill back in with putty. That's the beauty about working on these organic shapes that have lots of fur, is that you can always fill your gaps back in, so that's not so much of a worry there. The work on Han continues. I've sanded away, took some big chunks out of that scanner, so now it fits in his hand very nicely, and I can glue the string that comes with it as a handle, or as a what would you call that? The strap. The strap can go around his neck, and that'll fall more organically that way. And now I just need to put on this second arm and figure out Actually, well, no, because that actually does go up kind of next to it. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, never mind. It's just going to be resting on it. It's not going to be gripping it, but it's going to be resting on it. I'm working on some Han-taun orthodontia, and believe me, that's a sentence I didn't think I'd be saying when I got up today. I didn't think it would make all that much difference to use these resin pieces. I'm sorry, these are actually 3D printed pieces of the upper and lower plates. I didn't think it would make that much of a difference, that they wouldn't be that noticeable, but son of a gun if they're not. That's a nice little bit of detail in there. Even with the mouth being just barely open, you can really see what a difference adding these upper and lower plates does make. So, as Dr. Scholl once said, I stand corrected. It could be a lot of the fact is that they're gray and they stand out and you can really notice them. I don't know what it's going to be ultimately after I get the paint on them. But they do have more of an impact than I was willing to give them at the outset. So now we're at a spot where we're ready to take a lunch break and put that in place. Oh, you can't see that because it's not in camera. You can see I've got the second arm on Han. He's fully armed now. I've got his right arm on there, and it's just balanced up against the scanner there. It's not holding it, so it looks like he just took his hand off of it. So that explains why his hand is not cusped around it. He just took it off of there. So I think that's gonna look good. And now there are other things that need to go on him. There's obviously the pistol holster. Say that 5 times fast early in the morning. And some other details that go on the saddle, some bags and blankets and things like that. And we need to figure out the best way the best point at which those will need to go on. I think the next thing to do would be to attach this jaw. I may even want to do some rudimentary flesh colored painting inside there even before I do anything else, simply so that I can have that going on when I paint the rest of the outside. I think this bit here needs to be sanded down from the inside of the mouth. But like I said, it does create a cloud of dust here, particularly when you use a Dremel on this Illuminite. It really does raise a cloud here. So it's going to sit something like that. And that'll give you an idea of what the final pose of everything is going to look like. Righty, we're getting ready to close up for today. Now we've done a few things, small steps, baby steps, incremental steps, but important things. I've got the scope in, or the binoculars in Han's hand. I've got the other arm on there, so that was a impactful piece. It may look strange, but I've actually got the mouth painted in on the hairy beast, because I wasn't ever going to be able to get in there with a brush afterwards, and that's ready to go. I think the last thing we'll do for today is to go ahead and attach the head to the neck there and let that be curing up overnight. Now the packs, I was kind of two minds about this. I want to go. Part of me was saying, leave the packs off, paint them separately, stick them on later. But then the other side of that coin is, well, if I'm going to put any seam, any wool, the hair coming up around the seam, I want to make sure that I'm not damaging that when I put these packs on. So now that I know exactly where the packs are going to lay, I can go in with little tufts of hair of epoxy sculpt and make some of that stick up around it. Let's see what else. I worked on the base a little bit, got that leveled out. I think the big important thing is, as much work as I did on the head today, I need to make sure that I don't damage these toenails, that I don't bing those around somewhere. So I'm going to put this, And I find myself with little bits of the adhesive epoxy left over when I am working with it, and you know, it's just going to go to waste if I don't put it somewhere. So I've been jamming it into the toe holes here on the base so that I can start filling those areas in. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday and work is progressing on Han-taun. I've got everything kind of patched together. This is what everything looks like with all of the details attached. Now, of course, that scanner is not attached. It's going to be hung by the strap over the horn, and that'll come off very easily. Han is not attached to the tauntaun at this time either, but I've got the rope, the strap on the binoculars going around the back, and that'll probably be glued down at some point. Really, the one last piece to worry about in all of this, well, there's three last pieces, but the two most important last pieces are these bits that are the actual little bits, the bits that go up into the bit. But I want to make sure that I have got the joint settled in first, because that is a very delicate bit of work there. Let's take Han off of here. He's making me nervous. Yeah, that was the visor. Okay, let's take Han, move him over there. The stirrups are not attached, obviously. That happens later. Let me move this other stirrup over. The stirrups get attached once Han is been glued down. These guys go on the joint right up in there, and I need to make sure that the neck has all been blended in before I do that. This is what I was saying about that coming off. Now the big important thing is, well, let me move it around. You can see I've got the other details attached to the blanket there. The big important thing is getting the feet firmly attached to the base, or at least firmly supported. I've been filling in the little toe holes with the spare epoxy as I've been needing it, but what I need to do is pull out some epoxy sculpt, make up a big wad of it, and jam it under the feet so that these feet are sitting solidly in this position. I need to figure out where my exact position is going to be, and then support it from underneath. And then while that's off drying, I can go in and start doing the work of blending in the fur around the joints. Alrighty, I've just spent the last hour or so doing some sculpting, particularly around the neck and the bridle. The bit parts don't really want to cooperate all that much. I don't know why, but they don't. So I had to do some re-sculpting on those and some refiguring. The important part was to get the bits, now it's tough to see around the horns there, to get the bit parts actually looking like they're going into the mouth, and then try to jimmy the straps around to make them match. So I more or less clipped everything else off that wasn't the ring and the immediate overlap there, and then I just kind of re-sculpted some of the straps to match those new spots, and then I put a new tuft of hair under the chin to kind of make up for that. Now I'm getting to the point where I need to set this down because the epoxy sculpt is still very soft, very pliable, and I'm finding that where I'm touching it, I am smushing down the hair that I want to be able to see as individual hairs. So I'm going back over those things that aren't quite cured, and I am roughing them back up, and then once this has had a chance to set up, I can either finish off the parts that I need to finish or go back in with a Dremel and clean them up myself. But there's only so much of give that these 3D parts have. So that's why I am stuck pretty much in this position that I am. I want this, like this ring on the horn here, I want that to be semicircular, but I've been touching it so much that I have flattened it down, and I need to re-round it out. And that's kind of where I'm at. So it's a good time for our lunch break. It's mid-afternoon. I haven't taken a break yet, so it's good. It's a good spot to leave it and let it cure for a while. The other thing I did that I didn't mention earlier was that I also resculpted the base. I put the big old wads of epoxy sculpt into the base and then sunk the feet down into them in the pose that I wanted him to be in, and then wiggled him out real quick before it's set. But that's going to allow me to see, I've got new feet marked in the base, and that'll be curing all day. Morning everybody, it's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and if things look a little clean around here, that's no accident. I went full Indiana Jones. I had to do the full Indiana Jones on this place. I misplaced a part. Happens to everybody, I know. I lost the part, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because that's the way life works. The part that you lose is going to be small, and it's going to be clear, so that you make it as difficult as possible to find it. And I tore this place apart. Literally, I tore it apart, and while I was at it, I kind of cleaned. But here's the part. The part was found, thank you very much. It is the clear goggles for Han. Han's goggles. Had them yesterday. And when I was looking at my parts and seeing what was left, I could not put my hands to that pair of goggles. And I went nuts. Only for two reasons. A, it's a very prominent part. And B, this is a resin garage kit. This is not something I can simply order up another replacement part. I was investigating all aspects. Could I get a new part recreated and 3D printed? Well, I'd have to contact somebody who knew how to create something like that. Could I call Stannarts and say, hey, can I, because this is a 3D printed part. Could I, get the STL from you and print my own? Can I buy a new one? All that kind of stuff went racing through my head. So much so that I, like I said, I cleaned everything. I vacuumed up, and I need to do that again. I pulled up the rug. I checked through the garbage, all that stuff that you do. And then I even so much as went back and looked at yesterday's video that I shot to see when was the last time I had it. Because I know I had it yesterday morning when I was doing an inventory of parts and talking about what my day was going to be like. And so I looked at the video, I saw it falling down off of his head and bouncing forward, and I went, okay, well at that point it was there. And then off camera, something you didn't see, even though I have this lovely container for the zip kicker, I had it out like this and I knocked it over and spilled it. It's gonna happen, but the zip kicker spilled, and I remember immediately once that happened, I did what you normally do, is I kind of jumped back, grabbed a rag, and did a quick wipe down. Well, if that wipe down went that way, then everything on that side of the room now is now suspect. It could have been in any of that. So that's my thought process. So the room was cleaned. The table is more or less back in action. You'll be happy to know it was in here. It was stuck in one of these, like sitting like that. If you remember yesterday, I had Han-taun on this I had Han-taun on the turntable. Say that 5 times real fast. Han-taun on the turntable, and when it fell off, it went into one of these little things. And I remember moving this off of the table and luckily it was stuck in there, because I was dreading all kinds of things. I could sculpt something out of epoxy sculpt, cover it with a snow effect, and, you know, fake it that way. Luckily, I don't have to fake it. So these are the parts that I have left. Yesterday, I did a lot of the sculpting of the hair and whatnot, and on the base. I even had a fleeting moment where I thought I might have buried it in some of this new epoxy sculpt. I did not bow to the pressure of digging through all of that. But went to the so I found the goggles yesterday. To my great relief, I found the goggles yesterday. And last night was our model Christmas club meeting, our model club Christmas meeting. And I was depending on going to the hobby shop last night to find the snow effects. They don't have any. They were out of the snow effects. So I'm kind of at loose ends about how to create the snow, and the snow on, you know, like the snow that's on Han's jacket and on his gloves and on his helmet, you know, on his pants, because there's snow sitting on top of this stuff. So I'm still at a kind of a loss of how to create that. I'm going to check another model railroad store that's not too far away and see if maybe they have some. But that's neither here nor there. Today we are ready to start priming stuff. And once we get this thing primed all gray, everybody all gray, then we will know what needs to be done so far as any more touch-ups on joints or any fur that may look out of whack. So the first thing we need to do is pull the three main parts. We have the base, we have the Han-taun, and we have Han. We need to put them in separate bins here and prime them and see how we are looking today. Look at that white blob. So I got the white primer on this. Luckily, this is the time of year that if you're going to need snow and your hobby shop doesn't have it, the craft stores do, because it's Christmas time. And I've checked the interwebs, and looks like the local craft mega box store will have something that's basically the same thing, but it's a flocking material. So I'll be flocking this flocking piece of snow. Primering the Han and the Han-taun with the gray. And here we can see a basic flaw in 3D printing is that, look at all of these levels that are banded and separating. I've laid on the primer. Hopefully that will fill in some of the cracks. But a lot of the build lines are very, very obvious. So if I can't, I mean, luckily it's just a piece of equipment. It's not vital. It would be nice to have, but I won't cry if I can't use it. But I'm going to try to camouflage that either with some of the snow effects or other gunging up of the finish, or if I have to, I can put some Tamiya putty over it. But not wildly happy about the poor. I guess that would be in the curing. It was printed flawlessly, but I don't think it was cured very well. And we got a lot of striations in it. Don't have the same problem with these stirrups. They're in great shape. So when time comes to put those on, we're going to have a lot better luck with those. Okay, here is the primed Han-taun on the base. Now you might be right in thinking, or at least you might be correct in thinking that a lot of the work is done now. Well, yes and no. I mean, primarily the Han-tauns were gray, but there was so much more going on. This is simply the base, the prime. I have to go, once this dries, under some spots I missed with the primer that I'm going to hit again. I've been masking the mouth off to keep that clean, the areas that I've already painted. But yes, a lot of that work is done, but this is merely undercoat. What this gray is going to allow me to do, firstly, is to see any seam work, any mold seams that need to be ground down, or any of the patches that I put in with the epoxy sculpt that are way too obvious, I can tone some of that down and blend some of that fur in. But yeah, it's this will give you we've had our first real good indication of the work that lays ahead. There's just something about putting a gray base coat on things that really brings things out, makes them stand out and be a lot more obvious than when you're looking at them in the raw resin. And now we've got a similar first good look at Han with all the details. Everything once everything is all the same color, it's much easier to see what's going on. But you can really see what a good likeness that is now that it's not in white, and you can see the contours of the sculpt a little bit better. And yes, once that dries, I will be going back in and doing some more touch-up priming in areas like in the folds and stuff that didn't get done on the first coat or on the first pass. You don't want to plaster the whole thing with paint the first time out. And then of course the stirrups will go on like that. But okay, doing research on colors of things, and boy, it seems like you can't build a model these days without stepping into some sort of controversy about what color something was. And color is both subjective and absolute, because yes, I understand the costume was made of a earth-based material. That earth-based material had a color to it, and that color should be honored. And then there is, how did something look on screen? And we've all been down this road before, whether it's the color of the Enterprise or the color of Kirk's uniform top, or you name it. Pick your current controversy, and you'll find people on both sides of this. Now, in this subject, the controversy is over the color of Harrison Ford's jacket. Darn, I was hoping I was going to be free of something this time around. Just, no questions, just paint something and be done with it. But oh no, I gotta pick something else that there seems to be heated internet controversy about. Well, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to solve it. Yes, the fabric was brown. The fabric was brown when it was filmed. It's going to be blue when I paint it. Why? Well, because I want to. And the other factors being the action figure was blue. That's how I remember it. When I had the little Kenner action figure, it was a blue jacket. Right or wrong, it was blue. Yes, I know when you film something out in the snow, it puts a blue cast on everything. It's not like Irvin Kershner didn't understand that. So he was fine with it looking blue. I'm fine with it looking blue. Plus, the very real thing about all of this is that the tauntaun is gray with specks of brown. Between that and the snow, and Han Solo's, he's beige and brown, light colored pants with brown strappings and brown fur, and Tauntaun's got brown. There's so much brown here going on that if I have an excuse to use a color, by God, I'm going to use that excuse to use some color. And now it's not going to be bright blue. That's ridiculous. It's not sky blue. It's not this color of blue. No. It is a deep navy blue that looks, that's brown that looks blue. I'm going to be using the sea blue color, the Tamiya sea blue color. It's possible I could put a brown wash over it, make everybody happy. But its predominant first appearance, when you look at it, it's going to look blue. Or bluish. It's certainly not going to look like yet another brown. And when we see how the other browns react to it, it might end up looking a little bit brown. But that's my take on it. You can flame me all you want. You're not changing my mind. Like I said, there's enough brown in this world. There's enough brown in this kit. I have an excuse to use a little bit of blue. that's what I'm going to do. Ooh, look, I made a rhyme. And look at this thing. Let's see if I can get it in focus here. But you can really see the cracks showing up on that. So when time comes to sand it, let me see if any of that will sand out. This is to be painted a light color, almost like a white or a ivory, an off-white, or a very, very light gray. And it looks like I may have to put either a very thin skim coat of putty over the whole thing, or maybe try to spray it with a filler primer. See if that helps. But this thing is just turned into mush. It's turned into all kinds of crackness. So yeah, we'll have to see if this is going to end up being usable at all. Like I said, not really crying if I can't use it. Hey everybody, it's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and you know, when it comes to painting, I have found. This was both in when I was in art school and when I was in my professional life as a graphic artist. I would notice there are pretty much two ways that people would approach painting something. They would either start with a blank canvas and then bullseye on one section of that canvas and finish whatever it was to completion in that area. Whether they were painting a face or a house, a landscape or whatever, they would, just finish everything they could in the center and then, work out to a different area. Or there were people like me. I have a tendency to throw down big swashes of color and then refine and refine and refine till I get down to where I am happy with my finished results. Because I like doing that because it throws a lot of color on the canvas in that case, or the model in this case. It gets a lot of color down right away, and you could start to see the shape of things and the color of things and how these different things relate to each other. Easier that way. So this is where I'm at today on Han and the Han-taun. I have put down huge swatches of color very quickly with very little regard to, making it neat. I'm not worried about making it neat at this point. What I'm interested in is getting some good base colors down. So A, I can decide if that's the base color I want to stick with, or B, how difficult is this area going to be to paint? What area am I going to put washes over? What am I going to do with, how am I going to approach dry brushing? Things like that. So what you're seeing now is just some very quick work I did this morning on Han, roughing in the color of his boots and pants and belt and his face and the fur around his face and the gloves, that sort of stuff. Just roughing in the color. And then I'll go back and I'll refine all this stuff after it's had a chance to dry, and I can see how the colors are looking, how they're relating to each other, what they look like pushed up against each other. And the same thing here with the Han-taun. I've painted in the nails and the horns, and more importantly the straps in the saddle, so I can see basically where the straps are, where the hookups are, where the buckles are. And this Han-taun is going to be a beast to paint, quite literally, because in some areas the fur is so deep. Whether it's the lamb's wool around these blankets, whatever, you really have to jam the brush down in there to paint it, to get the paint to stick. So in areas like that, that's where I can determine how thick of a brush am I going to have to use, firstly. And then, is that going to be better off to try to paint with a wash and let a really liquidy wash go down in there and then dry brush over top of it? Or is it something that I need to get in there with a thick base coat? Because there are some areas that, try as I might, I'm still seeing the gray of the primer through, just because it's tough to get in and around everything. I am trying to minimize the use of an airbrush on all of this and do most of it with a hand brush. but I can see now that there might be areas where I might need the force of a spray to get the paint in there. I have not tried putting, or not thought about putting, any of the coloration of the Han-taun fur in here yet. There will be areas that will be darker gray, almost a charcoal gray, that I will then dry brush on top of to bring out highlights. But that's kind of where I'm at today. You know, the fleshy areas on the face, the bone areas around the horns, things like that. Some of that stuff is kind of a given, but you want to go back and see how those colors are going to react when you put them up against other things. So that's where I'm at this morning. I've got a full rough color coat on a lot of what's going on here, and I'm going to let that dry for a bit, and then we'll come back and we'll start doing either some washes or more refinements. I think what I need to do, honestly, I think I need to bring out the airbrush, even though I said I wasn't going to do it, and airbrush in some of these darker fur colors. So maybe let's do that, and we'll start pre-shading the fur. And now we're into the tried and true territory of it's going to look worse before it starts looking better. Honestly, if I had known the black was going to be so prevalent, I probably should have started with that as a primer and worked the grays into it from there. But as any lady will tell you, it's all about the roots, darling. You got to make sure the roots are colored. So that's basically what I've done. This is way overdone. Way overdone. But when you got to get in and around the way this thing is sculpted, there's so much detail in it that if you just do the tops, it's going to look cheap and like you didn't try. So to look more well-rounded, you need to get around each of the sides, and I can see somewhere inside that leg I didn't do a good job, but that I think I can handle that with a thin black wash to really get down in some of those crevices. But this is coming along, believe it or not. This is what I wanted to do, and even Han has not escaped the pre-shading, the NATO black pre-shading. He's looking a little bit more well-rounded. That blue has been knocked down some. The boots are looking a little more dimensional now. Of course, the face will be the hardest and the thing I'll spend the most time on. But the gloves, I still need to go with a white pass on it, because the palms of those gloves, or the hand part, not the cuff, but the hand part, needs to be more of a white. Of course, his hat is white, dirty white, and then the scarf also has to be brought out some. So plenty more to do, but we're going to let this sit for the time being. Okay, I'm starting to tighten up some of the colors and see where we're going to go from there. Hopefully you can tell where Han is starting to come into focus here. I'm liking what's happening with the fur around his face there. Painting the face is going to be its own issue. But I'm starting to put the whites in on his gloves and the gray on the cuffs there. The brown wash over the blue jacket really does knock that blue down and bring it more into the brown family. But it's still obviously on the blue side of the brown family. So maybe we'll split the baby and call it a bluish brown and not have to declare ourselves in either camp as far as whether it's supposed to be blue or brown. I am also starting to play with color for the Han-taun itself. I like what's going on here on the shoulder here. I really like that. That's showing me what I want to see. But the danger is it's mid to late Friday afternoon now, and I don't want to start this, because if I start it, once I get a good color going and I get the good brush, you know, you get into a good groove of dry brushing, you don't want to stop. And I really don't have the time today, because that would probably be an all-day thing. If I start now, I will never get the video done and edited and posted in time. So I'm going to take this area here as a success and as an indication of what I want the whole thing to be. and carry that around starting on Monday. My schedule for the next week, since we're on Christmas week, is going to be that I probably only work a few days, maybe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and post it on Wednesday. If I can finish in those 3 days, I'll just post it then, and then take a long weekend for Christmas itself. But yeah, I'm starting to get into the leggings here on the boots. I want this to look all of a piece so that when you sit it on here, it looks natural. It looks like it was painted by the same guy at the same time, using some of the same colors. But that's getting there. That's really getting there. I want these legs to stand out. I want this lamb's wool blanket here. I know it's not lamb's wool. It's space lamb. It's space lamb's wool. Just like this is space fur. But something here that can bring out this brighter color back here, and then a tan color on this blanket. I had thought about making it one of those silver thermal blankets, but you never saw that in the Star Wars universe that much. So that idea went by the wayside pretty quickly. If I can rescue this, then it might hang over this side like that and bring some lightness to this side of the animal. I think we've got enough going on this side that we can put the other piece of equipment hanging over the other side. And I might even scratch build some posts and sticks and stuff like that to go on here. See what kind of time we've got left after we get the rest of it done. The horns and the face obviously are going to be a big issue, and I need to do some research because the temptation is to make that a flesh color, but it really isn't. Maybe the inner mouth is, but it really isn't. So we'll look at that, and geez, at this point I need to see how much of that foot is going to be covered by the stirrup anyway, and I really should put a coat of paint on these stirrups to get them consistent with the rest of the saddle. Okay, I think this is where we're going to leave it for the week. I'm starting to overwork things, and I need to step back, get some perspective, and then attack it anew. I know it needs to be a whole lot lighter than this. This is the pre-shaded dark. This is some of these blacks are as dark as it's ever going to be on this Han-taun, but it needs to be brought back up and lightened. Now, doing a little bit of photo research and Blu-ray research, there's a whole lot less strapping. I mean, haltering and stuff on the actual beast than it is here. And the reins are more of a gray color than this typical brown color. So that's a good excuse to get away from all of this brown. I can recolor those reins, and then the harness, I can recolor it. The trouble is, I think I'm going to end up getting into too many grays. Once I lighten all this up, if I make the reins gray, then it's going to make it very difficult for those to stand out. But I'm liking Han's face. I'm liking the weather-beaten look there. I might put a little bit more color on his nose and lips because he should be very cold. I like the way the fur is happening. I'm starting to narrow down specific things I like. Generally, I like how it's generally looking, but like in this area of the shoulder, I'm particularly liking that, and I can start narrowing things down. The coloration on the Han-taun's face is still wrong. That's more of a flesh color when it should be more of a yellow or yellow ochre color. Again, the fur should be a whole lot lighter. This is a creature that should be, almost lost in the snow. Should be like 1 or 2 shades darker than the snow around it. And then, of course, I haven't put any of the snow accents that would be on like Han's jacket or on his knees there on the tauntaun head, and that's going to break a lot of that up too once we start seeing some of the snow effects on it. I've got to nail down this strap. It is getting in the way, so I think I'm going to have to go ahead and glue it down or otherwise tack it in place so that it learns to behave itself. And I think that's a wonderful place to stop for the week. There's enough left to fill out a video for next week. There's no reason to rush through it and try to get it done in 1 week. I think we've hit a good sweet spot to where we can leave it. So I'll come back next week and finish it off, and I'll get the video uploaded before Christmas. As you can see, I am in full Grinch regalia, so I am ready for the holiday. I hope you are. It's kind of difficult to get in the groove when it's 65 degrees outside and sunny, when I should be snow falling, and I should be throwing another log on the fire, but you take what you get. So as I said, that's it for the first week. Join us next time. We will finish this up, and y'all take care of yourself till then. Be good, be safe, be smart, have some fun, not too much fun. I'm watching you. See you here next time, or I'll see you in hell, either way. You look at the tauntaun and you say, I'll see you in hell. It's like, geez, Han, lighten up a little bit. I was just saying it's cold outside. Lordy, don't get on your high tauntaun about me. I'm rambling, so I'll sign off and see you next time.
I'll see you in hell.